So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Severance Season 2. So, let's get into it, shall we? Severance Season 2 is, of course, if you hadn't guessed already, but if you haven't guessed already, but Severance Season 2 is, of course, the follow-up to Severance Season 1, which I did not review on this channel, but which I did watch a couple of years ago now. I think I watched it in 2022 for the first time. And if you don't know what Severance is about, I should probably say this off the top. If you don't know what Severance is about, Google describes it best. Basically, Severance is about this character called Mark, who's played by Adam Scott in the show, who leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs. I mean, there's a lot more to the show, but that's basically the gist of the series if you didn't already know what it's about. And like I said already, I watched the first season of this show a couple years ago now in 2022. And I quickly became obsessed with it. I was lucky enough to watch it after all the episodes of the first season had already come out. I wasn't watching it weekly like I was watching season 2 weekly. I binge watched it, I think within the space of about 2 weeks, which is unusual for me. Usually when it's a series which is like 8 episodes or between 8 to 10 episodes, it takes me maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe even a month, to properly to probably get through the show, should I say. I'm not binging it if watching over a month, but you get the point I'm making. Usually it takes me a bit of time to get through a show, but with Severance, I couldn't wait to watch each episode. The first time I saw that first season, I was just completely obsessed with it. I fell in love with Severance, and obviously Severance Season 1 ended with that huge cliffhanger. She's alive! That's not a spoiler if you hadn't seen the show. Well, actually it might be a little bit, but still, the show has been out for a good couple of years now. The first season of the show has been out anyway for a good couple of years now, so you had time to watch it, but that cliffhanger at the end of Season 1 had me literally dying and counting down the seconds to watch Season 2. So I was dead excited when I heard that Season 2 was starting on Apple TV Plus, when it was starting to air in January of 2025. And after finishing the last episode of Season 2 last night, I am so happy to say I absolutely loved this season of Severance, and I think it's just as excellent as Season 1. I loved every episode in this season. Yes, I even loved episodes 7 and 8, which some people had problems with it. Particularly episode 8, which if you don't remember, is the episode focused around Miss Cobell. I loved that episode. I loved it. I loved every episode in the season. I thought all the characters' storylines got more emotionally engaging, and I thought the story, I thought the storytelling became more rich. I loved all the sort of mythology that you go into in this season with the whole Lumen stuff. I love how it delves more into the weirdness, the strangeness of what's going on, and I do think that this is one of, if not the best show on TV right now, because it is astoundingly well written. The acting is all Emmy worthy from everybody, even the likes of Christopher Walken, who doesn't have a huge role in the show. Well, he does have a big role actually, but he's not in this show quite a lot, and yet every time he's on screen, I'm constantly drawn to him. I love all the performances. I love the directing, and so much of the directing for the show of this season of Severance is done by Ben Stiller. And I've been a fan of Ben Stiller as a director ever since The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Granted, I haven't seen any of his other I haven't seen any of his other movies that I directed, but I love the way he directed The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I think that's a very underrated film, which Adam Scott is also in. So, you know, a little union between Adam Scott and Ben Stiller when it comes to this show. I remember watching that first season of Severance, which Ben Stiller also directed episodes of, and being quite stunned by the direction. Then you'd finish an episode and say, directed by Ben Stiller. I was thinking, that can't be the same Ben Stiller who was in Dodgeball, who was in Meet the Parents, who was in all those, you know, sort of forgettable comedies, at least in my opinion. That can't be the same person. Oh no, wait, it is. And he directs quite a lot of the episodes. I won't give him full credit because he doesn't direct all the episodes in this season. I don't know how he could do that because each episode is so well directed. He directs so many episodes in this season with this style and this boldness, this visual boldness. Every episode in the season, every scene, every frame in this season of Severance, every frame and scene in Severance overall feels like it's had this careful care and attention put into it, put into the shot composition. And I know that doesn't sound like a big thing, but it all pays off. You know what I mean? It all pays off when you watch the show and you see the result that you're getting, which is completely engaging TV from start to finish. Like, you're watching this season and I could not help but be engaged by so much of it, whether it was in the writing and the storytelling, because what I love about this show is how it assumes that its audience is smart. It doesn't assume that its audience is dumb. It doesn't need to over-explain anything. I actually like how it lets the audience figure out so much of what's going on. You know, I've been watching this season with my family. They caught up to Severance when they heard that the second season was coming out and when they heard me raving about it non-stop. I talk with my family after watching each episode, and I would say to them, you know, I love how it's that sort of show when you're watching it, you don't have a clue what's going on most of the time. I mean, quite a lot of the time, you don't have a clue what's going on when you're watching each episode of Severance. But then you kind of piece it all together after you've seen that episode. I love a show like that. I love how you can talk about each episode for time and time on end after you've seen them, because there's so much to each episode. And it assumes that its audience is smart. It doesn't assume that its audience is dumb. It doesn't assume that its audience is going to be on its phone and just trying to grab their attention. I love how this series takes its time, because there's so many TV shows out there, even TV shows which I love. But a lot of TV shows you get nowadays, you know, they're constantly doing this quick editing. They're trying to keep your audience interested, trying to keep the audience off their phone. But I love how this series takes its time. You know, I love how it takes its time in the pacing, and then yes, things do start to ramp up as the series goes on, but it also keeps you engaged by the way it's shot, by the way each scene is orchestrated. It's done in such a masterful way that you don't want to look away from the screen, but at the same time, it's not keeping your interest because of multiple edits. It's not keeping your interest because it's editing, you know, because it's changing edit about 5,000 times within 30 seconds, like so many things nowadays are. Like so many things nowadays in streaming are, should I say, as well. You know, it's keeping your interest just in the way it's shot and in the storytelling, and it almost feels like one of those shows where if you look away for just a second, you'll miss some really important big detail. And that's another thing I love about this show. How, you know, you watch some of the scenes early on in the season and you think, oh, this is completely unnecessary. Why are we spending so much time on this moment in this season? Like, I won't give away too many details in case people haven't seen Severance Season 2 yet, but the character of Helena is looking at this video of her innie. If you've seen the show, you know what the innie and outie you know what the innie and outie thing is all about. If you haven't, I'll leave that up to you. I'll leave that up to you to discover. But she's watching a video of her innie kissing Mark, which is something that happened in the last episode of Season 1. And the scene goes on for like 5 minutes. And the first time I was watching this, I was thinking, what is the purpose of this? Why are we spending so much time with this scene? And then as the season went on, I understood why we spend so much time with that scene. And I love how you watch things happen early on in the season. You think, what is the significance of this? Why are we spending so much time with this? And then as the season goes on, you understand why you spent so much time early on in that scene, which didn't feel important whatsoever. I love how it makes the insignificant things feel significant, because that's the thing about Severance. Like, every single detail is important. And there were so many questions in the season. There's so many questions surrounding Severance and what it's actually about overall. The amount of theories that I've seen online, I don't really go down the rabbit hole of Severance theories, because I used to do that with some shows I watched, and I think it actually ended up ruining my experience with the shows, and I don't want that to happen with Severance. So I haven't really looked up many Severance theories. However, I have looked up some because into the show, you know what I mean? And I love how it's that sort of show which you can theorise about until your heart's content, you know, because there's so many areas of this series, or overall, there's so many areas of Severance which you can just dissect and you don't really know what's going on. But in the second season, you get more answers. I loved how it did give you answers. I was worried that it wasn't going to. I was about halfway through this season of Severance thinking, God, we better get some answers, otherwise I might have to give this a slightly negative review. But no, you get to the end of season 2 of Severance, and I'm not going to say what the answers are because the season only just ended, but you do get some answers in this season as to what's going on. I mean, granted, some of the answers raise more questions, but you do get some answers as to what's going on. And even though there are a lot of things unanswered by the end of the season of Severance, it still managed to be satisfying. It still managed to provide you with an emotionally satisfying finale. And that finale episode, oh my God, that might be like the single greatest piece of television I've ever seen. I mean, maybe I'm over-exaggerating there, because I already watched the episode, what was it, less than 12 hours ago now. But I was watching that last episode, and every moment I was eating up like it was the dessert at the end of a perfect meal. I mean, it was just... I'm lost for words of how good that finale was. And that last shot, for all I care, that could be the last shot of the overall series. It's not going to be. Season 3 has already been renewed, and I'm very curious to how they're going to follow up with Season 3. I'm also very worried because, God, they've got to keep with the excellence. If they don't, then it's going to be disappointing. But, yeah, that last episode of Season 2 was... it was one big roller coaster of emotions, from laughing, from crying. Well, I wasn't crying actually, but I was almost turning up to feeling this sense of relief, which I didn't expect to feel in the finale of this season of Severance. And you can tell, by the way, that this series is, well, that quite a lot of episodes in this season are directed by someone who has been around comedy for quite a bit of time, because like what he mentioned, Ben Stiller directed a lot of episodes in this season in Severance overall, and there's this slightly comedic touch to the direction which makes it funny to watch. I think you need that comedic touch when it comes to this show. If you don't have that comedic touch, I think this show will be way too serious and too dark. I have a problem with a lot of shows that are too dark because I find them hard to stomach, whilst Severance is one of those shows that I can come back to time and time again and still enjoy and still get entertained by it, you know what I mean? Because it's got that layer of comedy in there, and I think it helps that it's directed, that quite a lot of the episodes are directed by Ben Stiller, who has worked in comedy for quite a bit of time. He's acted in many famous comedies, some which I mentioned earlier in this review, like Dodgeball and Meet the Parents, and there's other ones I just forget off the top of my head right now. But get the point I'm making, Ben Stiller has worked in comedy quite a lot, and you have these comedic undertones going on throughout this season, but throughout Severance overall, which I love, because it makes the show entertaining, and the show is entertaining. It's exciting to watch. This is exciting television. It truly is. It's one of... I mean, it is just magnificent. All the performances are Emmy-worthy, and I mean Emmy-worthy. Sometimes people just say that. They throw that phrase around, oh, the performances in this show were Emmy-worthy. But when you get to this series, you see that that's actually the case. So, all the performances are Emmy-worthy. All of them. I love how you can see the subtleties in the performances, you know, that between these two versions of each character. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm on about, but it's kind of hard to explain if you haven't seen the show. So, yeah, I love how in the performances you can see the difference between the innie mark and the outie mark. I love how Adam Scott plays a character. This is my favourite Adam Scott performance, and I've loved Adam Scott ever since I saw him in Step Brothers, and I thought it was one of the best parts of Step Brothers because I wasn't a huge fan of that film. And Parks and Recreation, I thought it was when he came into Parks and Recreation, that's when the show picked up for me because I was a bit hesitant on it until that point, and I loved him in Parks and Recreation. I think this is his best performance. I think this is the show that Adam Scott was made for. I think Britt Lower, who I've never seen in anything else before this, she is a massively underrated actress. I hope she gets loads more work after this show because she deserves it. Britt Lower, I think, is guaranteed an Emmy for her performance in this show. I mean, it isn't all about awards at the end of the day, but still, she needs to get some recognition for her performance because, especially in this season, in the episode Woe's Hollow, if you've seen that episode, you know what I'm on about. The way she plays her innie and her outie is unbelievably fantastic. Just her facial expressions convey so much. John Turturro is also amazing in this show. I think his name is Zach Cherry, who plays Dylan. Also amazing. And as I've already said, the support performances are amazing too. The one who plays Devon, I've forgotten her name off the top of my head right now. The one who plays Gemma is also phenomenal. And Christopher Walken is magnetic. Christopher Walken is so good in this show. I've become a huge Christopher Walken fan ever since I saw him in Stephen Merchant's show Outlaws, which first came out I think in 2021. I've been a huge Christopher Walken fan since then, and this has only enhanced my love of Christopher Walken. Every time he's on screen, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I love the music. I love the needle drops. I love how each episode is directed, which I know I've already said, but, you know, I love the direction in the show. And I love how this season in particular is all about, well, it's essentially a love story. This season in particular, Severance, not so much season 1, they did get it a bit in season 1, but this season is more about the love stories between these central 4 characters that we are following. And in particular, the love story between Mark and Helly. And how that develops as this season goes on without going into too many details. I love how that becomes the heart of this season, because I'm not saying the first season was heartless, but I think in the first season the heart is in the relationship between Mark and Devon, and I think that was done very well. And I think you could see the heart also in the relationship between Mark and Helly in the first season, but it wasn't as strong. Whilst in this season, that heart is stronger, and it's a beating heart that you can feel there throughout the season. Whenever those 2 characters, whenever the main 4 characters are on screen together, it's like magic is happening. I mean, this whole season, this whole show, I don't understand how they came up with it. I'm still kind of gobsmacked that it exists, because it is, like, unbelievably original. I don't know how, I think Dan Erickson, who is a creator on the show, I don't know how he came up with this idea. I read somewhere that apparently used to work at a door company, and he wanted his mind to be erased every day that he left work. And so perhaps that's how he came up with the show. But there's still so much of this show that it's just like, how did anyone come up with this? I mean, it's genius. It is, like, utter genius. But I still don't understand how anyone came up with this, because it's so weird and it's so strange, yet it's so brilliant. It is brilliant with a capital B. I can't get over how good this show is. I was reading some stuff on social media about the last episode after I finished it yesterday, and some people were disappointed by the season. Some people were saying that not enough happened. All you need to do in the season was watch episode 7 and episode 10, and I'm like, I'm sorry, did we watch the same show? This was not a filler season. People don't know what the word filler means anymore. They just throw it around willy-nilly. No, this was not a filler season. So much happened in every single episode of the season. Yes, even in episode 8, which I know some people weren't fans of. Personally, I really liked. So much important stuff happens in each and every episode that you need to watch. And if you don't watch, you'll just be completely lost with this show. You know, this is not a show which you can skip a couple episodes and still try and figure out what's going on. No. You need to watch every episode on this show, because every episode is quality TV. I truly mean that. Quality TV. And as I've said in the title of this podcast today, could this be one of the best shows ... ever? Well, perhaps yes. I'm not joking there. Perhaps yes. I mean, granted, there's still 2 more seasons from what I'm hearing. It's going to be a 4-season show, and maybe they don't stick the landing, and maybe it's going to be like Game of Thrones all over again, where everybody's in love with it up until the last episode. But I hope that's not the case. I really hope that's not the case, because this show has so much potential, and I'm hoping to God that they stick the landing. I'm hoping so much, because I want this to be one of those shows that I can return to time and time and time again in the future. I don't want this to be like Game of Thrones, which I haven't returned to in full because I never can. I'm one of those people where if a show ends badly, I just can't return to it. It's just something with my head, that in the back of my head when I'm rewatching the show and I know it ends badly, I'm like, I can't enjoy this because I know the destination isn't worthwhile. Whilst I hope that's not the case with Severance. Granted, the show probably won't end till like 2030, but still, I hope that it does eventually stick the landing, because I do think this could be considered one of the greatest TV shows of all time if it does stick to landing. I mean, so far I do think it is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. That's no exaggeration. I genuinely think that's the case. Like, it is incredibly amazing. I know that's not good English, but I don't care. I get so excited talking about the show. I think about it way too much, and I can't wait for season 3. The reality is, we'll probably have to wait 2 years for season 3 because of the way TV shows are made nowadays. But still, God, when season 3 comes out, oh, I'm going to be ecstatic because I love this show so much. I can't wait to watch season 2 again and find all these details that I didn't find the first time around, and just be so absorbed by every single episode, because this is the sort of TV which I love. Apparently it's in the genre of mystery box. I looked up what people say these type of shows are, these mystery box shows, where it starts off and you don't know what's going on, and questions slowly get answered as the series goes on. And I love a good mystery box show, and this isn't only a good mystery box show, this is a flipping fantastic mystery box show. And I don't have any criticisms. I've got a couple of nitpicks, but I'm not going to go into them. Because I love this show so much. I don't care about my nitpick. I don't care about my nitpicks. Like, every episode of the show, I am astounded by. Like, every episode, I can't get my head over how they made that work. Yeah, I love Severance overall, and I thought this season was somehow just as excellent as season 1. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Severance season 2, I'm going to say that it is a 10 out of 10. Oh, that feels good to say, because I was worried that it wasn't going to be nearly as good, before this season started. But, oh, yeah. It's just as excellent as season 1. It's wildly creative. I don't know how they make this show. Even the set design blows my mind. The production design, the set design, even that stuff. The way they shoot the offices, I don't get. Like, even that sort of stuff gets me confused just thinking about it. Like, I don't know how they make this show. I'm so glad that it exists, and I wish more people watch it. I wish more people watched it, because I can tell you now, if this was on Netflix or Prime Video, this would be one of the most talked about shows of all time. It'd be like Stranger Things level talked about, the excitement would be like the excitement for the next season of Stranger Things. I can just tell you that would be the case. But the reality is, Apple TV Plus is not a big streaming service yet. I think that can change, and I think it can change as Severance goes on if it continues to be excellent. But right now, although Severance is probably one of the most talked about shows out there, I don't think it's nearly as talked about as it should be, and I think that's because it's on Apple TV Plus. And I mean, I'm happy that it's on Apple TV Plus, because it sounds like they give them freedom to make what they want. But still, if this was on a different streamer, God, you would hear people talking about it non-stop. The way people talk about House of the Dragon when it's airing, the way people talk about Last of Us when it's airing, the way people talk about The Boys when it's airing, or the way people are talking about adolescents right now. You know, people would talk about this show non-stop in that similar way if it was on one of the big streaming services. But it's on Apple TV Plus, and I think if you don't have Apple TV Plus, this is a reason to get Apple TV Plus and give it a couple episodes. This is a show which does take, I would say, about 3 episodes to get into. But once you get into it, I mean, you won't be forgetting it anytime soon. Season 1 and Season 2 of Severance are a masterclass in writing, directing, acting, and how to make brilliant, and I mean brilliant, TV. I mean, not just brilliant TV, brilliant entertainment. Entertainment that fully engages you and immerses you in a way that no other TV show has really done for me. Yeah, you get the point. I absolutely love Severance, and I loved Season 2 as well. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Season 2 of Severance is a 10 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Severance Season 2, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts and many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. As what he says, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.